My squash plants have an enemy, and it's this little gray moth that does its dirty work while I'm sleeping. It lays its eggs right on a baby squash, and that egg becomes a very hungry caterpillar that ends up eating not only the squash, but my whole plant. And before you know it, there's no squash for me. But I've outwitted the moths, and I hide my plants in plain view. Do you have enemies like that? I think this is going to work for you. And not only do I do that, but I help out the pollinators too, without ruining their dignity. Hi, I'm Debbie, and welcome to my organic garden. Come on out to the garden with me, and I'll show you how you can do those two things too.
All I have needs I have not provided.
The squash is growing beautifully, and I see some little tiny baby squash, and that means I better get this row of squash and cucumbers covered up before the moths move in.
Join me as I garden through the seasons. I'll teach you how to grow lots of veggies, and we'll talk about the real things that happen in real gardens.
This netting's been used several years. When the season's done, just fold it up, roll it up, and store it. But I want to show you the difference between this netting and the netting that I put here. And you see which one you would rather have. So there's two different kinds of netting here. This kind is more like tulle. It's very flimsy and flexible. It doesn't last as long. But the advantage to using this is it only takes one piece to drape over because it comes in a wider width. I think it's 60 inches. This netting is very strong, it's rough, it lasts a lot longer, but you see here I need two pieces to completely cover the plants. And so I guess that's a decision that you have to make. Do you buy 2 bolts of the stronger that last for more years, or do you buy less of the more tulle-like fabric? In the past, I've just draped the netting right over the plant and let the plant support the netting, and it works. But The moths can be very creative, and they'll go ahead and try to lay the eggs right through the netting. And on occasion, there would be worms eating the plants anyway. So I'm going to try to improve on that this year. We'll see if that experiment works. There's something that's really important to know if you're going to cover your squash and your cucumbers. It takes pollinators to pollinate the flowers so that they can make cucumbers and squash. So if you want the pollinators to have access, then you're going to have to uncover these every morning and then cover them up again before the sun goes down. Or you can hand pollinate. It's early morning and I've uncovered the squash and the cucumbers. That allows the pollinators to come in and do their work. Now I've noticed that I don't have as many bees this year, but there's these little wasps that are going around and they're pollinators as well. But what if you have the problem of not having pollinators or not having enough? Well, you can hand pollinate your squash and your cucumbers. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's very common for there to be a whole lot more male flowers than females, especially at the beginning. And that's a good thing. You need to have the pollen ready for the female flowers because the female flowers are only open for a day. And if you miss that opportunity, it will not develop into a squash. So these are all male flowers, with the exception of 2 squashes that I've found so far. Here's an example of a male flower and a female flower. The male flower just has the stem. The female flower has what looks like the beginning of a squash underneath. And so here's what it looks like looking down into the flower itself. And that center bunch of fuzz is actually pollen, and it's technically on stamen. This is the female flower, and you can see the shape of the center is different. It's meant to receive the pollen from the male flower, and they are very close to each other. So I'm just going to transfer the pollen from this flower over here 2 different ways. So here is the male flower, and I'm going to take this makeup brush, any kind of soft brush will do, and I'm going to gently swirl it around. Do you see all that? That's pollen. And now I take the pollen over to the female flower. Gently swab the brush onto the ovum, and you can see quite a bit of the pollen has come off. I'm going to show you another way that you can do this without a brush. You're going to take the petals and you're going to carefully peel them away until you're just holding the stamen. Then gently take that stamen and just rub it across, and you'll be able to see the pollen sticking to the ovum of that little squash. You may have heard me refer to my garden journal. I refer to mine all the time. Mine is about 10 years old now, and it really is a help. I've made one for you to print out, or if you want to do an electronic version like I have, both versions are found in my Etsy shop. Thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful.
Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.